So you definitely have to finish the season, and USC and UCLA are proving that in the Pac-12 South, a division that's been owned by Utah the entire season. But USC and UCLA in the back door, and they are going head-to-head for not only bragging rights of Los Angeles, but also for the division championship. We bring in Nick Dempsey from Conquest Chronicles to help us sort out one of the better rivalries in college football. This is one that I look forward to each and every year, regardless of the records. But when they play for a championship, it means something special. So can you give us, Nick, maybe a little insight into what makes this one a little bit different?
Yeah, so this is a lot of times when you see rivals, it's sort of like teams from different part of the states or teams from neighboring states. But this is, this rivalry splits. It's an intra-city rivalry. You have to go to work with people from the other school. You probably have fans of the other school in your family, so you really do hear about it. You really kind of can't avoid it 365 days a year. That's not to say like Michigan, Ohio State, or Auburn, Alabama aren't very heated rivalries, or aren't talked about 365 days a year, but you kind of can't escape it because you have to go to work with these people. You have to live with these people. In some cases, you have to be married to these people. And so I think that's why it starts to really get heated. And then, of course, Southern California, a huge recruiting hotbed, and this is just sort of like a recruiting showcase in addition to a rivalry. If you want to get, try to get all those hot Southern California recruits, it helps to win this game. And all of the players, actually, they all played against either with or against each other in high school. Like all of these kids, they've been playing with and against each other since they were 5 and 6 in some cases. So this is like a lifelong culmination every year this game happens, and I think that's why it really gets kind of heated, even if the season kind of ended up disappointing.
And I mentioned it last night during our Pac-12 show as a boy from the Midwest who loves watching football being played in the weather, because even if you're from the Midwest, basically football season, college football season's played in nice weather. September, October's
Mm-hmm.
good, even most of November. This Ohio State-Michigan game's probably going to be played in 50-degree weather. It doesn't really factor into college football that much, but if you're going to get it, it's going to be the last couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And you get hammered all of a sudden. It comes out of nowhere, and then you flip on USC UCLA, and it's still 65, 70 degrees, and it looks beautiful and picturesque, whether it be from the Coliseum or especially from the Rose Bowl. We mentioned, and we were talking about this last night on the Pac-12 show, you and I, and a few others, about the uniforms, and it's just a beautiful setting when these two
Mm-hmm.
teams get together under the blue skies.
Yeah, I too grew up in the Midwest, and there's that we have a favorite saying out here. Our favorite part of winter is watching it from California. So it's always beautiful. It's very rarely poor weather. It's always sunny and nice, and it's a gorgeous scene. You don't get a lot of sloppiness or a lot of like just sort of ugly weather that just looks miserable to be in. It's just generally a beautiful Southern California day, and then it turns violent.
And what's also beautiful are some of these passes coming off the hand of Josh Rosen. I know this kid
Mm-hmm.
makes mistakes, and he certainly made a several in the first few weeks of the season, but he can really play, and he can really wing
Mm-hmm.
it. Even in some of the games that UCLA has lost, most notably the Washington State game, he did everything
Mm-hmm.
he could possibly do to win that game, drove him the length of the field in the closing minute, only for Washington State to bring it back in like the closing 30 seconds. This is a bit of a I guess on the surface, the stars are the quarterbacks, even though we've got stars all over the field, but they're the headliners. But you've got Josh Rosen, who's exciting for the
Mm-hmm.
UCLA fan base for what the potential future could be, versus Cody Kessler, who's kind of the KG veteran, and I don't know that USC fans are that enamored with him anymore because he hasn't quite delivered in some situations.
Yeah, and he has been a bit of a letdown in that sense. But you also have to appreciate if you're going to be the USC quarterback. Yeah, that's a great job, and it's a dream job for a lot of kids. But you also have to appreciate you're going to be graded on the Carson Palmer curve, on the Matt Leinart curve. That's a pretty steep curve. Um, so and that's but he hasn't delivered the wins um, or the championships yet. So it's yeah, it's disappointing, but he'll get it done. I'm pretty confident. But yeah, Rosen is a lot of fun to watch too, though. It's a little concerning what he could do in the next 2 to 3 years.
So, what kind of game plan do we see out of USC? I know we've talked the last several weeks about running the football because of three capable running backs, maybe
Hmm.
some issues protecting Kessler, but that game plan and that mindset could be magnified against a UCLA defense that has gotten completely shredded against the likes of
Hmm.
Arizona and Stanford in the running game.
I was actually thinking about this the other day. USC may actually want to consider taking the ball first. I know traditionally it's a good idea to defer to the second half on the coin toss, but if you've got a defense that doesn't bring pressure against a freshman quarterback who can throw the ball, and you've got a secondary that's a little uh, dicey in spots, and you're trying to run the ball 45 times a game, you can't go and you come out flat traditionally in the last couple games. You can't go down early and then try to run your way back into it. So I almost wonder if USC should try to come out with the ball first, get a nice long power run drive, take up 5, 6 minutes off the clock, get a touchdown, and then they can be able to sort of dictate the terms of this game. Um, if they get down by 2, 3 scores like they did against Oregon, Colorado, and Arizona and Notre Dame, it's going to be very difficult for them to run their way back into it, even with a soft run defense that UCLA currently has. Um, so I think they're really going to want to set the tone if they want to run 45 times a game. They're going to really want to set the tone early.
Nick Dempsey joins us from Conquest Chronicles. What's the health status of the Trojans overall?
Juju Smith-Schuster, their star wide receiver, is really banged up. I believe he was. Helton said he was at about 60%. He's got a wrist injury. He had, I believe, an abdomen injury. He really took a pounding against Oregon to the point where a lot of commenters thought someone should have just grabbed that kid's helmet and not let him get back on the field, at least for that game. But that's probably the main one. I believe one of their running backs is a little banged up, but they still have the two others, so they should be fine. Um, that's I think they got an injury or two in the secondary, but that's their secondary is what it is. I don't know if that really impacts it that much, but yeah, that's Juju Smith-Schuster is definitely the big one for USC.
And speaking of the defense, Nick, shredded against Oregon. Now, what Oregon brings that UCLA doesn't is constant pace, a mobile quarterback, maybe a little bit more dynamic playmakers on the outside. UCLA capable with Jordan Payton and company at wideout. I don't know if they can blow the top off the defense like Oregon can. So maybe USC gets a bit of a reprieve, but still the defense has to be a huge concern.
Yeah, it is, and I think you're right. I don't see UCLA putting up 48 points like Oregon did, but they've got a great running back, probably the most underrated in the Pac-12, I would say. Um, and they've got a kid with a great arm, and who's playing with confidence. And you can probably expect if you're Rosen that there's not going to be a lot of pressure coming from USC's front seven. So they're going to be able to put up points. I don't know if they're just going to be able to sling the ball around at will and score half a hundred. But I think if you're UCLA's offense, you've got to be feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, another topic we addressed, Nick, you and I, and a few others last night was the status of Clay Helton. Uh,
Hmm.
if he loses this game, he's 7-5, and 7-5 is not acceptable at USC, regardless of the turmoil involved. But suddenly, if he wins the game, he's not. It's not the difference between 8-4 and 7-5. It's winning the division
Hmm.
and going to the Pac-12 championship game. So the spin on the season is completely different. So, just your
Yeah.
thoughts about Clay Helton at this point.
Yeah, I think right now I would say most folks are leaning towards not keeping him in general. Any chance he has of dropping that interim tag and being the permanent coach, he's got to be UCLA. I think that's almost certain. There's been reports and rumors and all this flying around that USC has a big name guy lined up and all these sorts of things. But so that always factors into it. Who can you get better before you replace a guy? But he's got if he wants a shot, he's got to really put pressure on the university by going to the Pac-12 championship game, preferably winning it. It's gonna be tough to fire a guy who just took you to the Rose Bowl and possibly even won it. I know that's a lot of big ifs, uh, but that becomes a very interesting conversation you have to have. But if you use the UCLA, he's basically in the exact same spot as Orgeron. Players love him. Went on a decent run, lost to Notre Dame and UCLA, didn't reach their goals for the season. Um, so this is for his future really kind of hinges on this.
So two very exciting teams, two teams that have rosters loaded with talent, but two very flawed teams. Have you decided who's going to come out on top?
You know, there is a path to victory for USC, but it's fragile. I think on paper UCLA should win, uh, but A, it is rivalry, and yes, throw those records out and whatever cliche you want to use. And B, if the players who love Clay Helton kind of get the sense this is a must-win if they want their guy to stay, they could come out and sort of dig deep and do things we didn't expect them capable of. But I think if you just, and I know this is impossible, but if you take sort of the rivalry and the emotional elements out of it, I would say UCLA has a better chance of winning. Uh, but you know what? I'm gonna go total homer and just say USC pulls it out at home.
Yeah, I don't think either is going to shock anyone. This
Yeah,
is close to a toss-up. USC, UCLA, yeah, flawed football teams with 7 combined losses, but it's for a Pac-12 championship game berth. Nick Dempsey joins us from Conquest Chronicles. Always appreciate the discussion, Nick.
of course. Anytime. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.